In 1974, the court case United States v. Washington, or as it is more commonly known, the Boldt Decision, held that the Washington State Treaty Tribes were entitled to 50% of fin fish harvested yearly. At the same time, this decision did away with the blue cards. Also included in the Boldt Decision was the mandate that Washington tribes would work with the state of Washington in the management of fishery harvest limits. Tribes had to work with the state to determine harvest limits for each species of finfish, and then track every fish caught by tribal fishers to ensure that they had not taken more than their allowable harvest. Though the Boldt Decision was a big step forward in tribes regaining their rights, it did not affect all tribes the same way. Many tribes had to once again prove they were a federally recognized tribe to gain the benefits of the Boldt Decision. The federal government had previously spent many years refusing to recognize tribes as sovereign nations. This included the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe. Although the tribe was a party to the 1855 Treaty of Point-No-Point, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs considered the tribe to have control over their now much smaller lands, the federal government still refused to recognize Jamestown's sovereignty. In addition, Jamestown refused to move to the Skokomish Reservation at the government's urging. The ties to our lands were felt so strongly by our ancestors that they went against the government and decided to stay where the Creator had placed them.
As that development started to move forward and become recognized, they took those cards away from us. Just that quick, and we were finished. And then we were still gaining recognition and all those kinds of things, and the difficult. It's really kind of amazing to me when you think about it, as our ancestors have been here for thousands of years, and we got to go to the government to recognize it, that we were here. It's pretty silly. But that's the way it had to happen. And that's because all that stemmed from was that Elwha and Port Gamble got recognized. We had to be recognized because we had our ancestors had their own property. Mm-hmm. So we weren't on the reservation. But we were still on the rolls in 1926. And so through all that process, we gained recognition that we were alive and we were here.
The tribe was able to prove their case for sovereignty and were officially recognized in 1981. Jamestown was able to use evidence to show we were an established community through the services of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which were implemented at the tribal lands. We had a school, a court, and we were issued payment of $728 to each citizen. The payment was made possible by Congress in the S'Klallam Relief Act of 1925. Tribal fishers had fished prior to these services with cooperation from their sister tribe, the Port Gamble S'Klallam, but recognition solidified the Jamestown S'Klallam's relationship as a fisheries co-manager with the state.
I was the chairman for the Natural Resources Committee for about 12 years, I think it was. And we changed our name from the Hunting and Fishing Committee to the Natural Resources because we started dealing with more problems outside of the fishing. Mm-hmm. And it became the gathering, it became getting into the state parks or the park or federal parks for gathering. And so we started taking on some of those issues and feeding the tribal council with what our recommendations would be, all the way from fishing to the gathering to anchors being over in the cove over by Port Townsend. Mm-hmm. They had so many in there that they would just turn up the bottoms. Mm-hmm. And we recommended to the council that they all be removed, and they were. Mm-hmm. And so we were pretty much involved in all of the areas around us.
The Boldt Decision was met with heavy opposition from non-tribal commercial fishermen. In addition, Washington State refused to enforce the new regulations. Soon, it became a matter of federal supervision. Judge Boldt sent the United States Coast Guard and the National Marine Fisheries Service to enforce the order to reduce the non-tribal commercial fishing catch, which would allow tribal commercial fishing its rightful percentage of the catch. In many towns and cities within the state, the protests against the Boldt decision turned violent, including gunfire and boats being damaged.
And so the things that came on behind that was kind of interesting in the sense that I know I was working in Shelton in the correctional field the night that when the Boldt decision was made, and it was law that we got 50% of the fishing. The first night on the Hood Canal, I wasn't there. I was working that night in Shelton, but there was gunfire shot, and we thought that was it. We thought everything would come to an end. And I don't know who did that, and I don't know if anybody really found out who did that. But it took a while, and you know we're still fighting that same battle that we did even prior to the Boldt decision, is going out here and fishing our traditional lands.
Because shellfish rights were not included in the Boldt decision, tribal advocacy led to the Refiti decision in 1999. From then on, the tribe's shellfish rights held the same parameters as finfish in the Boldt decision. Unfortunately, these decisions have still not ended the tribes of Washington's struggle to protect their rights to treaty resources. A recent example is the 2001 case filed by 21 Northwest Washington tribes and joined by the United States that requested that Washington state repair or replace culverts that were impeding salmon migration. The tribes asserted that the culverts were in direct conflict with agreements made in the treaties. The culverts were hindering fish runs and habitats, which in turn reduced the number of fish, and thus were not allowing tribal fishermen to earn a moderate living. This ability to make a living on the natural resources of the land was a promise the tribes would not forget. Today, culverts are being replaced across the state. And tribes continue to fight to this day to fully exercise the rights their ancestors retained when they signed treaties, and to protect the resources that are an integral part of their culture and survival.